Hello again and welcome this time to our coverage of the 60th running of the FLECHE WALLONNE, the first of what they call the Ardennais weekend, although this and Liège-Bastogne-Liège no longer run on Saturday and Sunday but they're spread over a period of 4 days. And this great race taking in 10 major climbs, but there are a number of climbs which they don't even count, and the race coming to rest finally after 4 climbs of the Wall of Huy, the race starting in Spa. Now last year there were 3 riders in at the kill: Fondriest, Berzin and Jalabert. So as we look here at the winners, Fondriest won in 93, Jalabert was the winner last year, and we can now just remind ourselves as to what happened on that occasion on the climb of the Mur de Huy. Now he looks across just to see what Jalabert is thinking. A little bit of resistance from Berzin, but Fondriest is going now, and he's going in a very low gear. Such is the gradient here. And Berzin is gone, he had no answer to that now. And right on his wheel is Jalabert, and not giving an inch. Fondriest has gone, but Jalabert has not dropped an inch here, and that's good for Jalabert. The finish now just around this corner, and Fondriest will now see the finishing line. Jalabert kicks this time, and a nasty little hook from Maurizio Fondriest. But Jalabert has come round him easily, looks across at Fondriest and says, my 10th win is here, and for the 3rd time this year in a classic, Maurizio Fondriest is second, and indeed, for the 2nd time this year, he's finished second to Laurent Jalabert of France. Indeed, and Laurent Jalabert of France went on to become the world #1 rider last year, and also the rider to win the most races around the world. What a season he really did have. Back now though to the 60th running of FLECHE WALLONNE, and down there, the head of the peloton. It's been a good breakaway which has now come to an end by Richard Virenque after a break of some 100 kilometres, along with a new pro, Delanova from Italy. And those riders are now back in the fold as the race has now climbed the Huy twice. We've covered approximately 145 kilometres, and we're heading up now towards the top of the Côte de Paille, which crosses over at 147 kilometres covered. There is Maurizio Fondriest again, near the end of a race. He's in the thick of the action. A glimpse of Lance Armstrong, who is riding this race, having had a week training down on the French Riviera. In fact, where Jim Okovitz was also, his team director was down there with him, and Lance Armstrong getting a lot of miles in down there. Something like 28 hours he spent in the saddle, and he says he feels good. Well, we'll see. The main field thinned down somewhat from the 182 starters. The overall distance of the race, by the way, 126 miles, just on 200 kilometres. And this meant to be the stepping stone to the classic Liège-Bastogne-Liège coming up in 4 days' time, based in the same region. The riders now in the middle of their classic season, and the Armstrong group 48 seconds in the lead. Now, this is an interesting little move here. The rider sitting at the back of the group, number 34, is Gabriele Colombo, the winner of Milan-San Remo. And once you've got a big win under your belt, the confidence comes rushing in. Now he's looking for the moves. Armstrong wearing the magic number today, if that means anything to him. 51. It's won the Tour de France more times than any other number. And this isn't quite the Tour de France, but every rider loves to pull on that number, 51. And going through there too, Mauro Gianetti. Gianetti won last year 2 great classic rides, and it started with Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Something of a surprise. Here's Fondriest, and I think he's got his teammate up here as well, Alexander Gonchenkov. And there at the front also, in the white jersey of the gang colours, is Didier Rousse, having a very good season, having his best season actually. There is Gonchenkov, the Russian rider. And there's the complete list. Colombo, Armstrong, Zaina is the other man up here for the Carrera team, just to the right of our picture of the caption here. So Fondriest in a very strong position. He just had a word there with Enrico Zaina. And Zaina going backwards rather rapidly, as if something was requested, but I doubt it, from 2 rivals, although they both speak the same language, of course. Armstrong being left to bridge a little bit of a gap there, left open by Gonchenkov, and Fondriest, you see, calling Lance Armstrong through, but it wasn't really Armstrong's fault at all. Armstrong keeping the rhythm up. Back to the chasers here, and chasing for the MG, and they've got to do all the work. Marco Salagari, the MG of the team that's missed the move, so too the Festinas, with the wiping out of the breakaway by Richard Virenque. That was a great ride by Virenque, and of course because it was Virenque in that breakaway and the awareness that he is a rider who enjoys long escapes. Remember his ride to Cotteret last year in the Tour de France, and then the MG team decided they had to limit the escape, but they've still missed the move. Della Vedova was the other rider who was away, a new professional by the way from Italy, rides on the Basiliat team, who was away with Virenque. Virenque finally cracked him, and then the race wiped out Virenque as well. There we've got the 7 riders in the breakaway. We're heading our way round on the second big circuit here now. The circuit's made up. We have the 55-mile run between Spa and Huy, climb the mountain or the wall. Then we do our first circuit around at 22 miles, back up the wall again, and then a second circuit of 44 miles, and in all, by finishing on top of the wall, means we climb it 4 times. Armstrong got off to a superb start this year when he picked up 2nd place overall in Paris-Nice, so close to being the winner even. But he still hasn't won an event since his World Cup win last year in San Sebastian. This little group is holding on to a precarious lead here, but they do have a lead and they are working well together. The average speed at the moment is simply superb, and if it continues to the end, we are going to annihilate the record for FLECHE WALLONNE. 58 seconds the lead, so they're still pushing away because there is a commitment here in this breakaway. A good assessment by any of the riders tells them that all teams, well, not all teams, but many of the good teams are represented here, meaning that there aren't many teams left to chase. The pressure has gone on to Festina and MG to try and bring their riders across. Time for a little bit of dinner there for Maurizio Fondriest, while his teammate Gonchenkov continues with the pressure at the front. Zaina sitting here just off our picture now. Gabriella Colombo gone through. Here's Zaina coming through now. Plenty of drive in this breakaway. Didier Roos. Then Fondriest, followed by Armstrong. Little wave of the arm, I think, to say keep closer to the back wheel, perhaps. Mauro Gianetti, in his 11th season as a pro, and had something of a renaissance last year, and bad luck as well because he crashed in the Tour of Switzerland, breaking ribs. But before that, he picked up 2 great World Cup wins, the Amstel Gold Race after he'd won Liège-Bastogne-Liège. 1 minute and 2 seconds, so we're still going up. And that's because this breakaway is totally committed here. Well, Armstrong will know now just how well he feels, because he said he wasn't sure because he hasn't raced since the Tour of Flanders. He didn't ride Paris-Roubaix, of course. He was down preparing for the Ardennes weekend. That's Didier Roux. Ghana having a marvellous start to the year this year, and they're using a lot of different riders to get their wins as well. Zaina goes through, and then followed by Mauro Gianetti. This is the effort behind Once, MG, and there's a bit of a panic going on here, and I'm not surprised, because this race is still travelling around 30 miles an hour in the bunch. They've just seen the time check, which we have just seen, of 1 minute and 2 seconds. This is Felix Garcia Casas for Festina. And number 5 there is another Garcia, Marcelino from Spain and the Once team, and number 7 here, Roberto Sierra. So with 3 strong teams racing, you'd think they would eat into that lead, but they aren't. Colombo second in line here as we head towards the Côte de Boisso. Gabriella Colombo got off to a great start with the win in the Tour of Calabria in February. Then he rode the Tirreno Adriatico, where he finished 5th as well, and then wins Milan San Remo before he picked up the overall prize in the Tour of Sardinia. So he's having a superb season, 4 wins under his belt already, and good ones at that. Enrico Zaina Always worth a man for the effort. Now we're over a minute at the moment, and this is still looking very, very good. We're onto the climb here of the Côte de Boisseau, which leaves officially the Côte de Ahin and the Muir de Huy to take us up for the final time to the top, on the third climb rather, because we go round once more. There's no prize except the winner's prize on the last climb. Zaina this year still waiting for his first show of big form, and this may be the day. No wins yet for him. This breakaway really coming together soon after the second climb of the Muir de Huy, when the Blanche split up in a big way. Zaina, Colombo, Didier Roos. This is a pressurised breakaway. It is still going away. It is edging away. 1 minute and 12 seconds. Armstrong takes a little look over his shoulder there. Fondriest does not look to be riding quite as smoothly as he might be. He's allowing the gaps to open a little bit there. That's where we are, heading up towards 155 kilometers. And Gonchenkov in this breakaway, he finished second, which was a great performance for the Russian rider in Tirreno Adriatico, and of course runner-up behind Colombo in Milan-San Remo. So we've got the first and second in Milan-San Remo in this breakaway. Little call for a chat with the team car from Mauro Gianetti here. And Gonchenkov has continued great form. He rode into 8th place in the Tour de Flanders. Lance Armstrong in the thick of the action there, but falling away just to the end to finish in the 20s. So the team having a chat here at the back of the race, and I just saw a glimpse of Jim Okovic's Motorola car slip back as well. He'll be feeling very happy with the way things are going, with the strong man of the team in the right position just now. There's a novel way to try and eat if you can. Fondriest up to the side of his team car now. It's probably the time, with the gap now clearly over a minute. The team cars have been allowed to come up to this breakaway, and the chance for the team managers to get alongside their charges and just inject them with a little boost of confidence to tell them that this breakaway is looking as though it's going clear, and to keep the pressure on, because they would have expected at this sort of speed to have raced well clear of that main field, but there is such a good chase going on. They certainly haven't done that, and yet we're looking at a race here being enacted at around about 30 miles an hour at the moment, and despite the hills too. It's a very solid breakaway. There isn't a man shirking, and now it's time for Gabriela Colombo to also have a word. And there's the team cars. They're all up here. They all feel this is the move. Now, it's important at this stage of the race they don't start to ease off the pressure by just spending too long dropping back and talking to their team cars, because if they do that, then that chase by MG, Festina, Once is going to have them. So the 23-year-old Gabriele Colombo is back with his team car. Came to our notice really in a big way in last year's Tour de France. There's Didier Roux. Put his hand up now, he'd like a drink. He has started a great season this year. He won stage 4 rather, the Tour of Valencia. And then he beat Chris Boardman, his more famous teammate in the time trial, in the Criterium International in March. And then he popped up with a second place in Paris Camembert. Very unlucky there. He happened to go away with Adriano Baffi. And Baffi, of course, used to be a great sprinter and can still sprint pretty good. And Didier Roux had no chance against him in Paris Camembert. But he's in the move again and enjoying every minute of it so far. Here's the offensive coming from the bunch, from the Festina boys and MG. Number 86 here, Pascal Hervé. He's a rider who's already signed up to come across to the Tour du Pont in the United States this year. The three teams equally spread at the front. Unusual sight this, to see three teams putting in the chase, but they're all working together, and yet that breakaway is still going clear. There's Hervé. Didn't turn pro till he was 29 due to injury when he was an amateur rider. Then he got keen and started riding a bike again to rehabilitate, and he has a tremendous talent. And sitting there, number 23, is Michele Coppolillo from the MG squad. So friends in defence here as they try to get this race back into the fold, and I'm not sure they're going to do it at the moment. Long open flatland surrounding this part of the Ardennes, but we're in the area really of the beautiful forested woodland area where the deer roam wild, and this is the most beautiful part of Belgium. This is the French-speaking area where they are the Walloons who live here and not the Vlaams, and where they speak Flemish. 38 seconds, so there's a reaction which has had an effect. They are bringing them back. Still looking for a reaction from that group that will finally shut this breakaway down. It's not for a lack of effort now coming from this group, and that was probably why the Festina car was up here. Just to say, keep the pressure on because we are getting up there. Michele Coppolillo drops back, and the work being shared equally. Jean-Cyril Robin now of Festina. Just 25 miles to go to the line. So time is running out, and there's still a couple of tough climbs to come, to say the least. That's Roberto Sierra from Once. And Coppolillo is doing a lot of work. He's gone through again at a very high speed there. And now back up to the leaders. Now there might be a little bit of panic setting in here because they're going to have to start to go, or maybe even put in an attack to break up this breakaway if they're not going to increase the lead or indeed lose seconds here. Konchenkov dropping back. Look at this speed today, 43.5 kilometers an hour. Nearly 27 miles an hour today. That's a record by a long, long way if they continue that. Armstrong through. Gabriel Colombo. As Gianetti swings off, Didier Roux moves up the outside of the line. They're still working very well together. No sign of a weak link at all. There's the cool face of Lance Armstrong. He still looks pretty content with the way things are going. And there's an idea of just how fast we're going. 31 miles an hour just at this minute. I'm not surprised these riders are rather huddled over their bikes and getting on with the job, because they are giving an awful lot of effort out here. A lot of effort, in fact, which they really could do with saving a little bit for the climb of the Huy. Didier Roux chosen to follow the wheel of Konchenkov. Good turn by Mauro Gianetti. Gianetti, as I said earlier, now been a pro for 11 years. That's a great long career he's had. And this isn't a perfect day for high speed. There is a little bit of a wind around. So Gianetti won the second stage of the Criterium International. That's his only performance of note this year. But his form quite clearly coming once again. There's Zaida. And they've gone clear again. So they read the warning bells. They've opened up the gain. That 50 km/h burst has done the job. And it's now started to go. Now that may be the psychological gap that the peloton will crack on. They thought they were coming back. And now it's opened out again. There could be a realization that they're not going to catch these. It's superb speed riding, this. Although they list 10 small climbs in the race, which start with the Côte de Filo after 33.5 miles, there are other climbs that don't count, including the 2 climbs of the wall, which don't count towards the general classification of the hills competition. They only count 1 climb of the 4 climbs in the Mer de Huy. That's the 3rd time they go up it with a lap to go. And there's how it's been working out in the way the time gap has yo-yoed around. This is a new graphic we've got for you here. As the red bit is when they started to lose their lead, but it started to go into the green again, and that's good news, of course. All the Festinas. Team from Andorra, but they've now apparently registered their team in France. And the MG Technogym, they're very similar colours, the MG Technogym and Festina at a glance, and it often appears that they're all on the same team, but they're not, of course. Now looking at that, I think it's just over 70 kilometres an hour. Well, this is going to be, they're going to be round the course in no time at all today. They're all going to be in the showers pretty early. And the man that wins this, I'm pretty certain now, is going to be the man to go in the books as being the rider who has set the fastest ever FLECHE WALLONNE. What a fitting time to do that as we celebrate 60 years of this event. Or 60 editions of this event. Still the same riders. Sierra doing a little bit of work at the front again. And now we've got Salagari just passing through. They're followed by Garcia. But ahead, the empty road as we look down into the field here. Laurent Jalabert, the winner last year, not in the event because of injury. So the throne is open for the taking today. A new king will be crowned at the end. Coppolillo doing more than his fair share in the chase for MG as well. And also not here, the winner of Paris-Roubaix and the leader of the World Cup. And although the FLECHE WALLONNE isn't a World Cup race, which is rather sad, Johan Museo still hasn't turned up for this event. I think the only reason that the FLECHE WALLONNE is not a World Cup counting event is because of its proximity to all the other World Cup events, and because it's also in Belgium, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, La Doyenne of the Classics. That has the World Cup tag, and that's in 4 days' time. There's the little group that got together and has not stopped pedalling its heart out since, because they haven't relinquished anything at all down there. They've been going so well, so quickly. And there's no sign of there being a passenger here either. Everybody is throwing their weight in. Fondriest taking the line through over Didier Rousse. The long empty road ahead, and Armstrong decides to just feel a little bit relaxed. He really does look cool today. Little glance at Didier, and then carries on. We're now 35 kilometres from the line. About 23 miles. And a nice drop down here. And still no decision made in this breakaway. They've still got the gap. It is going up. 8% the descent here, but a very good road, as you can see. The roads in this area, at least the roads they use for FLECHE WALLONNE, tend to be wide. They're not quite the same roads as we use for Liège-Bastogne-Liège, where the roads tend to be a little bit narrow in places, especially on some of the hills around some of the great villages like Toipon and Stavelot. So we're just around about 31 kilometers here from the finish, about 20 miles to go. Didier Roux must be wondering where he got this great form from. He's come into a good season this year. He's found a team which is very happy. Gabriele Colombo, another man who has shot himself to the fore now as well. And he looks pretty cool as well. Just time for a drink and no panic. Fondriest, who was voted by Robert Miller as the most stylish cyclist he'd ever seen, the way he sits his bike. Much different position to his teammate Gonchenkov, who's just going past him now. And then the streamlined position of Gabriele Colombo. 51 seconds, they are being held agonizingly close for the chasers, but they can't quite close down that gap. 51 seconds and round about 20 miles from the finish here. That is not an unstoppable breakaway by any means, but both riders in both groups are at the limit of their chase speed, surely. Around about 30 miles an hour, including the hills, is formidable. Colombo goes through, and again this has been a brilliant choice for a breakaway. Every one of these riders putting the weight behind. Nobody's shirking. That line is working well, and that's the only reason this breakaway has survived like it is doing. Onto the little climb of the Côte de Boisseau. 20% in the middle, short, sharp and steep. It looks as though Gianetti is having none of it. He's sitting off the back here now, just going up with the group. Armstrong looks to be getting to be one of the strong men in this breakaway. Armstrong looks over his shoulder as I speak about him, moves down to the back of the line and makes Didier Roux close the gap. This is a little bit of a counter-attack here that's coming. Well, not really. They're just trying to still finish off, but they've got the assistance now of the Brasiliat team. That's Fabrizio Bontempi it was. Launched the sprint at the front of that line. So over the top of the Boisseau, we're 174 kilometers done now. And still the counter coming now for Festina. Now this may be seen by a lot of the riders as the last chance to really eat into that breakaway. They've got to get closing it down now quickly. And they're starting to reduce it again. 47 seconds now for the group Armstrong, as they are calling it. I would have thought they'd have afforded that honour to the winner of this race a couple of years ago, Maurizio Fondriest, but there we are. Mauro Gianetti, Armstrong. And now this is Coppolillo again turning the screw as they try desperately to bring it through. There's Berzin. They know they've got to do it very quickly now. Time is not on their side at all. Zayn dropped to the back. It looks the way they're riding here that word has got back to them too, that that group is coming back once again. Look at the tempo here. It's a pity that they're just in the shadow of the trees there from our helicopter, because this is really a crucial part of the chase now. The Gateways boys have got all of the men up to the front. Well, 3 of them at least. There's Berzin. He's trying now to close down on this breakaway. He's being followed through there, I think, by Frattini. As a reminder of the groupe de tête. And spring a little bit late in arriving in Belgium. It's about 3 or 4 weeks behind all over Europe after a rather chilly start to the new summer season for the cyclists. And the gap continues to fall. 39 seconds now. This is beginning to look very, very fragile indeed. Berzin and the Gaywiz boys are moving right to the front. I haven't actually seen them do the work yet, but they're right there poised. And maybe Berzin's planning an attack as soon as the chance presents itself. Gabriella Colombo takes the line through here. There's been no rest for these 7. Armstrong has gone to the back. Follows the line through. Everybody's still working. Then Fondriest quickly tacks onto the back wheel of Armstrong. It seems to me that Armstrong and Fondriest are going around this line together, which indicates that it's Fondriest who rates Armstrong as the man to watch. And Gabriella Colombo has missed a turn as somebody stretches at the front. It's here Giannetti who's gone. Well, hasn't gone, but he's hurt them a little bit as Gonchenkov gets to grips with matters. The gap is down to just half a minute. So Armstrong follows through Gonchenkov. Here's the champion of Italy now, Gianni Bugno, who are back with the field. So MG Technogym sending up the big man to do some of the work, and he's being marked here by Andrea Perron of Motorola. Then comes Berzin, and there's a sprinkling of teammates breaking in here. There's another one, Axel Merckx, also trying to break up the system. The Gan boys are playing their part. They're all here. Axel, son of Eddie, and we're just waiting for a good performance from Axel, which will break him out of the shadow of the fact that he is Eddie Merckx' son. He did a great ride in his last year as an amateur in the World Championships in Norway, and was very unlucky that he didn't run out the world champion on that occasion, but he earned a lot of friends then, and since then he's become a pro. Steady at the moment, but he's still very, very young, of course. Gerard Rouet for Gan, trying to break up the rhythm of the boys who are chasing down. What we have to be careful of is the flotilla of people behind don't get too many, and that's why you see the arms there of, I think it's Jean-Marie Leblanc, trying to move all these motorbikes out of the way. These are nervous moments now. Jean-Marie calling to the cars behind because they're all getting twitchy. I think this breakaway is coming back because he's taking out all of the cars. This means we're inside 30 seconds, just leaving Mavic service there perhaps. Well, what a hard thing to do if they come back now, but then again, if you're in the bunch, of course, it's a great thing to happen. Giannetti, Colombo, still they're all crouched over the handlebars. I think they're probably too scared to look back over their shoulders now because they might actually see the peloton. So it looks as though they've allowed just the service car to stay in there, because the service takes around 10 seconds, the gap is around 30, they could still keep that rider in the hunt. Roux around the corner, Roos rather. Heading towards the Côte d'Ahan, which will put us at the 190 kilometre point. We're still about 11k to go, so we're still a little way from the finish. Something I feel has got to happen when we get to this coast, if it doesn't happen before, because that group is chasing them down. It's not the full field, of course. The field split on the first climb of the Huy. I'll be 190 kilometres done when we get to the top of the Côte d'Ahan. Around about 180 done at this point. Colombo, pedaling his legs off, takes the line through. The wind now coming across the fields from the right. Therefore, the line has altered its changing pattern to come through on the inside of the riders. Gianetti, they're only doing short turns, a sign of a group which is working well but is anxious to keep the pressure on. It's simply a question of through and off. Well, it was until Didier Roos got to the front. A little bit slower for Fondriest. Fondriest, I don't think, is that good today. The Festina team here. And there is Gann trying to break it up. And we've also got one of the Rossellotto riders here. It's good to see that all of the teams are trying to break up the rhythm, and they're having some degree of success. There's Andrea Perron. He's also more than playing his part too, at 22 and a bit kilometres to go to the finish. Gawis, Berzin. They're not going to make any big effort while they've got Colombo in the break, but I'm quite sure that Berzin is itching to do something about it and can't. Unless he can go alone. Look at these speeds again. We're on a gentle descent, but it's not really a downhill, is it? And we're topping 60 kilometres an hour. These riders are pedaling the highest gear at this point, and pedaling it with great speed too. Look at the cadence. Zaina through. Gone through rather too quickly for Fondriest again. Takes the inside of the bend, but he's having to struggle to get round Zaina. Armstrong right tight on his back wheel. No shortage of work rate coming from Lance Armstrong, the Texan, either. Last year's winner of the Tour du Pont and the stage, his second in his career of riding, the Tour de France. And this year came out fighting in Paris-Nice, the race to the sun. They started to nudge away again. Can you believe this? 37 seconds now they've gone up again. Well, this has been a great breakaway. It's not been really for the nervous out there, because it's been very close to being caught. It's been on a piece of elastic that refuses to snap. There's Fondriest. Armstrong rushes through in a big scurry, followed by Gonchenkov, then Didier Roos. Colombo, Zaina. Mauro Gianetti, and then tucking in on the back of the line there shortly will be Fondriest. Back to the chasers. Still Festina. That was Laurent Dufaux who was on the front, just taking them round the corner. Here's Axel Merckx, looking nicely relaxed. He just keeps annoying them by dropping his bike into the line whenever he can, just to slow down the rhythm. The long, tall Axel Merckx, not quite the same shape as his father was. His father's also tall, but a lot of bulk on his father as well. Certainly now, Eddie will excuse me, but he does enjoy the odd beer or two. But he loves following the sport. A man who enjoyed it to the full as a bike rider and has continued to do so since. Very much a part of the cycling scene, no question of leaving the sport in Eddie Merckx's mind. Has his own bicycle factory as well, attached to his house, just on the outskirts of Vilvoorde, near the airport in Brussels. Well, a little bit disheartening for these riders from Festina. Once seem to have given up the ghost. They've dropped it back from the front now, because there's a lot of teammates up here who are doing a great job breaking up the rhythm, and never more were they needed, because this breakaway has been caught and not caught. It's been as close as that. We're heading up towards the Côte de Ben Ahin, and it's well, it's 44 now, it's 43, but still that elastic has not found its final braking strain yet. They've called back in the service car. You saw it waiting on the road, so that's going to be a little booster for the breakaway. When they see the service car go back in behind them, it means they've started to improve again. 3, 6, 7. All huddled together for survival in this case. The reason fish shoal up is so they don't get eaten by predators. And that seems to be a fitting remark today to make about this group of 7, because the predators are not far behind. Côte d'Ain, not very far up the road, still trying to get on terms here. Laurent Dufaux looks over for more help, on its way. The rider relieving him was Jean-Cyril Robin, who was a world junior record holder when a junior cyclist before he became a pro. And heading now down towards the finish at Huy. Armstrong still looking as though he's quite relaxed and content with the situation. He's never showed any signs of panic despite the proximity of the field. Just pulling his weight nicely. Didier Rousse goes past. The relaxed style of Gonchenkov. Now Zaina. Zaina in no hurry to do his turn now. Lets Armstrong take his place as the chase continues at the front, being put to the force by Dufaux. And always willing to help, Michele Coppolillo. Great turn of speed by Coppolillo. But it's the same names from these teams that are left up here to do the chase, indicating there aren't too many boys left with the impetus now. There's Felix Garcia Casas. And now we see the flick of the old left arm there, calling to, in this case, Robin. As we watch these pictures, I'm actually listening also to a conversation from Roger Leger in the Gant team car, talking to French television here, and telling the French television commentators just how good Didier Rousse is riding at the moment, having, despite working so hard for Chris Bourban in the Criterium International, he also managed to beat Chris in the time trial. Chris went on to become the first English-speaking winner, by the way, of that event. And now we can see if Didier Rousse, Chris Bourban not riding today, he's not quite recovered from a slight injury. Whether Didier Rousse can deliver the goods today. He's down there in that breakaway. There he is in the white jersey of Gant. Roger Leger, who's stayed loyal to the sport as well, produced teams year in, year out. He's had some bad luck when Greg LeMond raced for him on the Z team. Signed that huge contract of $5.5 million, and in the first year of it, up popped Greg with a victory in the Tour de France. But Leger has not had a great deal of success, despite the success obviously with Greg LeMond. But this year it seems to me as though he's going to have a great year. And the Gant team, the only automatic French qualifiers for the Tour de France, which is a little bit sad for the French nationals this year. Now stomping on towards the climb of the Côte d'Ain. Gonchenkov moves over, takes a little look at Colombo, no problem. Straight through and off comes the Didier Rousse, followed by Maurizio Fondriest. The line for the moment has lost a little bit of its organisation. It's coming back now. Fondriest goes through and up, but you know, he's not riding that well. He struggles to get over the top of the riders who are setting the pace. Ginetti looks good. Back here with the bunch now, and you can see the face of Axel Merckx. He's got complete control, so too is the Gant rider behind. And then we've got Perron. Now we've got an attack here by Gonchenkov, I think. Gonchenkov has gone. Armstrong has sprinted across the gap to join him. Look at the pedal revs now of Alexander Gonchenkov here on the Côte d'Ain, which is 190 kilometres covered. He looks over his shoulder. He sees Armstrong's with him. Armstrong looks over his shoulder. He sees he's got the gap. Now, I felt that there had to be a move come on this climb. There's no more climbs left till the finishing climb of the Muir de Huy now. And Armstrong continues to kick and ride here. There's Gonchenkov, the man who started it all. This is a very, very good move. Armstrong spotted Gonchenkov. Had this, somebody else has joined on. Oh, it's saying it's all of them. Colombo, Roos, no, it's not all of them. And it's true, you see, Fondries is in trouble on the climb. The other man missing, Ginetti and Zaina. So 3 riders detached at the moment, but I think the power's turned off. Armstrong hasn't turned it off, he's continuing. Didier Roux follows. Colombo looks across at Gonchenkov. They've hesitated. Now we have 2 new leaders heading up towards the summit of the climb. Armstrong and Didier Roux. Now that could be a mistake by the other 2. Armstrong keeps the rhythm up. Doesn't even bother to wait for any help yet from Didier Roux. And it's a good gap. Armstrong now willing to take the pace from Didier Roux. He joined his back wheel. And he continues to concentrate. Those big legs of Lance Armstrong pushing those pedals around rapidly now. Go on, there's a counter-attack coming. Here comes the move that should close it down. Ginetti followed by Gonchenkov. Fondries is really in a little bit of trouble here. This is Jojo Furlan and Rouet. Brochard. They've fractured the field here. Again, Axel Merckx trying to break them up. Here he is. And Andrea Perron just ahead of him. So there are still riders, despite that split, content to foil the counter-attack. Now let's get back to the leaders, because here they are, and they are still clear. Didier Roux followed by Lance Armstrong. Ginetti has tried to get across. Roux wants Armstrong to come through. But if he wants him to come through, he should ease off the pedals a little bit. Armstrong having none of it. He'll wait till he eases before he counters. Well, this is a commitment now by these 2. They made the attack on that climb, I think, because they were a little bit unsure about whether that peloton was going to get back. Let's hope that they haven't gone too soon. Over the top for the Côte d'Ain. We're now just over 10 kilometres from the finish. But of course it's those last couple of kilometres which will really hurt. The very steep climb in the Mer de Puy. Armstrong and Didier Roux. America versus France. No American has ever won what we will refer to as the Spring Classics. And Didier Roux has never really had a big win. 34th in 1994, Didier. Didn't ride last year. But he's having his best season. We must not forget that. There's Lance's results, 36th and 22nd, the last 2 attempts. Laurent Brochard still trying to get the Festinas back into the race here. And Brochard has gone clear on his own. So he's got very good form. And it looks like he's fed up and trying to bridge the gap and be spoiled by the tactics of Gann and Motorola. He's now going to try and cross the gap on his own. Laurent Brochard. Inside 10 to go now. Inside 6 miles to the finish. Didier Roux turned professional at the end of 1992. And then in his first year as a pro, he rode the Open Tour de l'Avenir, where he finished 4th overall. 19 seconds the gap back to the 5 they left. He's only ever had 1 win since turning pro, Didier Roux, but my goodness me, until this year that is. But he really has now turned the corner, I think. Takes a while for some riders to settle into the world of professional bike racing. It also depends on your status on the team as to how much chance you will actually get to win a race. Well, in Olympic year, we think back to how the 4 years since the last Olympics have changed for Lance Armstrong. A poor ride in Barcelona, a poor ride by his standards, put him on the brink of giving up the sport of bicycle racing. And then he turns professional, finishes last in San Sebastian. Last year he won that race, and of course he's since been the world champion, the American champion, 2 stages of the Tour de France. He is now simply one of the world's top riders, and he's put himself into a great move here that could give him the biggest classic win to date for him. These 5 riders, I don't think they'll come back to the 2 leaders, but there is always a danger that the bunch will come back. 52 seconds to Brochard. I guess that puts the main field now outside a minute. This is beginning to look very, very good for these 2. Now, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't worry about Lance beating Didier Rousse, but we do have the climb on this occasion. Here's the fast-charging Laurent Brochard. Will he get across to at least the 5 chasers? 31st last year. He's done well to slip the field, and because he's gone, of course, the Festina team will have backed off the chase now. It'll all be left to MG. Now that's the sort of road he doesn't want to see. Nobody ahead of him. It's a little bit depressing at this stage of FLECHE WALLONNE with only 6 kilometres left to go. Head down, a little sly glance underneath to see if anybody's coming up, and at the moment they're not. He got off to a good start this year. 2 top performances in the first 2 rounds of the World Cup. Laurent Brochard 9th in Milan-San Remo, followed that up with a very, very good 7th place in the Tour of Flanders. And at the moment he's riding on the road on 8th place in FLECHE WALLONNE. So he'll be picking up world ranking points as we look down on the descent here, winding the way down to the valley road to race along the river before they go up towards the top of Huy. Armstrong in the lead. Sharp turn here. And Lance Armstrong seems to be prepared to make the pace down the hills and see the corners first. Back to Laurent Brochard. This is where the interest lies for the moment for French cameramen, or Belgian cameramen as we are in this case. His chase is on and he's slowly closing in on those other riders. But these riders here are pulling away just a little bit. Out goes the old arm again. Now the 25 seconds to Colombo, a minute 2 to Brochard. So nobody's going nowhere fast at the moment. I don't think Brochard at this speed is going to catch up with those 5, and in turn those 5 are not going to see these 2 again till the finish. And we're going to look at the 2 riders now who are going to fight out FLECHE WALLONNE. A question of, I think, who will win. Surely the odds are on Lance Armstrong here. Lance seems to ride a very low saddle as his legs hardly straighten at all there. Stretches his back just a little bit, but he doesn't look to be in any trouble at all. I think Armstrong's feeling absolutely great inside today. Rushes through. Didier, no problem in taking his wheel. He too is feeling on great form. Those days when the world seems completely controllable, when you have that wonderful feeling of top form, you can beat anybody. Big effort by Lance, and an immediate easing, and through comes Didier Rousse, and then catch the wheel. And a little bit of an effort to catch the wheel because Didier isn't slowing down at all. Short turns as well, these riders doing. They're keeping a very high speed up. I don't think there's any doubt now we're going to annihilate the old record for FLECHE WALLONNE. Back to the group. Colombo. winner of Milan San Remo, and he drops back from the line as Mauro Gianetti takes it through. Followed by Fondriest. Then Colombo back in. So what's happened to Gonchenkov? The two leaders nowhere to be seen. Just a motorbike up there in the distance, but they're not with the leaders. And Gonchenkov following the wheel of Zaina, so he must have decided to make Zaina come through in the line. These little rolling climbs now before we finally get down to the basement, into the town of Huy, and then start the climb up to the finish. Armstrong easing back. 3 kilometers to go now. Oh, Didier Roos, he lost Paris Camembert because he was alongside Adriano Baffi, a top sprinter. Tough finish too, Paris Camembert. Now he's in a breakaway again, and he's alongside another man who can handle himself in the sprint, Lance Armstrong. Certainly no big turns being done by those two. They're going through, holding the pace and dropping back. Armstrong, rather Fondriest here. Seems to recover a little bit and more anxious to put some weight behind the chase than he was earlier. 56 kilometers an hour. Well, I think it'll be an awful long time before we see a race as quick as this again. I remember commentating on Milan San Remo when Gianni Bugno won his at record speed after quite a nice breakaway coming up towards the finish. Now we're doing the same here on FLECHE WALLONNE, but it's not quite as clear cut as to who the winner will be here. Bugno was on his own. Couple of kilometers to go. There would normally be a lot of nervous reaction in this group if it was a flat finish, but of course they both know they've got to keep the race up to the finish, which is on the wall. It's only 1 kilometer just over to go now, so they're going to make a turn onto the wall very shortly, and Didier Roos, I think, is going to be the first man to make it. There's the kilometer kite, and the turn is straight ahead of them. Armstrong is going to force, or at least allow, Didier Roos the right turn first. This is a nasty little climb. There's the chase group being led by Colombo. Onto the climb now. Roos wants Armstrong to come through. Armstrong is quite willing. Just round this next corner is where the hill really begins to bite. And Roos is holding the side of Armstrong now, expecting something to come from him. There's the maximum 20% in the middle, just before, well, just after the middle and before we get to the line, in fact. And Roos now dropping back just momentarily, but he won't take the wheel of Armstrong. He wants to see what he's doing. And now we've still got the two teammates here, Roslotto, but they're not doing anything either right now. Now we got Armstrong right behind Didier Roos. Armstrong looks to me as though he's building up for something. Armstrong still sitting in behind Didier Roos. Now Roos looks to me as though he's overdone it here. I think his enthusiasm has played too big a part. He really shouldn't have done quite so much work on this climb. He's now in and out of the saddle. And perhaps he's got the confidence, perhaps he thinks Armstrong hasn't got the strength. This is the steep bit now where you have to get in and grind your way up to the summit. Armstrong climbs behind him, the crowd on the Huy here. A Frenchman leads an American. An American has never won this race. Armstrong moves to the right and gives it everything. Armstrong goes, and I don't think Roux has an answer to that. Didier Roux just took one look to his right and thought, there's no way I can get the wheel of Armstrong. This is 110% now from the American. A brilliant race today for both of them, but there has to be a winner, and it's going to be Lance Armstrong. Armstrong just riding up this hill now as if it were flat. Super huge crowd here as he races towards the top of the Huy. He'll keep the pressure on all the way to make sure he has drilled that man into the ground into second place. Colombo here trying to go clear as well. Not trying, but is going clear. Chased by Gianetti, then by Fondriest and Gonchenkov. Lance Armstrong, the Lone Ranger, comes up the climb to win the FLECHE WALLONNE. There's nobody going to stop him now. Is this man on the start of his greatest ever season, and it's going to take some beating of the year he won the world title, but he's having a wonderful year now, and he gets his first win of the season. What a race to choose. FLECHE WALLONNE, Lance Armstrong takes it clearly on the line. Didier Roux continues his great season as well with another second place in a top semi-classic event. About 8 seconds down there for Didier Roux. Now the race for third place as we watch the field start the climb, but they're still out of it, but they've never been really out of it, have they? Fondriest, this man who won it 2 years ago, has found the legs to go away on the finishing climb and is going to get third place for sure. He's being chased by Gianetti. It looks as though Colombo has hit the wall, quite literally, because he's now zigzagging, hoping to hold on to fifth place. Fondriest is going to get third. That's a big effort by Maurizio. He's not had a good day, but it just shows you if you suffer, you get something out of it. Fourth, Mauro Gianetti. Fifth, Gabriele Colombo, who tried the attack at the bottom, but the legs wouldn't keep going to the top. Enrico Zaina comes in sixth place. And then behind will be Gonchenkov, and he's the last of the breakaway. Let's have a look how it all happened. There's the attack. Lance never panicked on this climb. He waited until Didier Roux cooked himself, then laid off by a length, shot across the road to the right, and gave it 110%. And for the moment he made the move, Didier knew he had lost this race. Always to check over the shoulder first to make sure that he hasn't had a resurgence in life before you make ready for the finish. And I bet you Lance Armstrong ranks that as one of his best. And on the finishing line now with Lance is Paul Sherwin.
Very good tactical ride today. Was it also not only a tactical ride, a win, but a physical win for you?
Well, of course like this is always very physical, but I always thought this race suited me, and last year I felt good, and I didn't ride a tactical race, a good tactical race. So today that was my main objective, is to ride the race smart, and I felt like I've had the legs to win in the past, and if I rode smart I could win today.
Well, you're a little bit worried there because you come up against the French riders quite often and you end up with second place, and there was a French rider there with you at the end.
Yeah. It's 5 times I was second this year, and every time it was, not every time, but 4 out of 5 it was to the same guy. So, Didier Roux is good friends with Jalabert, so I thought maybe it's something in the air around there where they live, but I don't know. I was super motivated. I didn't want to be second.
You've just broken 2 records today. First, you're the first American to ever win the FLECHE WALLONNE, but you've also become the youngest rider ever to win the race at the top of the Mur de Huy.
Well, one surprises me and one doesn't. But it's always good to win, whether you're the youngest or the oldest. In this sport, you have to take them when you can get them, so I'm happy.
I bet you are, Lance. What a great victory that was. Not so happy Didier Roux, because that's another second place for him, but I think very happy Maurizio Fondriest, who got third today. So a win for Lance Armstrong, Didier Roux second, Maurizio Fondriest third, Mario Gianetti fourth. Let's find out now what happens in Liège-Bastogne-Liège.